Okay, so we're coming now to the concluding section of the Gemara's discussion on the laws pertaining to Chanukah. And God willing, tomorrow we begin a new tractate in the Gemara. Today, of course, is also the 20th of Tevis, is the yahrzeit, is the anniversary of the passing of the Rambam, Chav Tevis. And it's appropriate because we're going to see one of the halachas that we're going to learn now, one of the laws we're going to learn now from Chanukah is reiterated very beautifully in the laws of the Rambam. And I hope to look at that at the end of the class. We'll look at that and share something about that beautiful passage in the Rambam related to the laws of Chanukah and Shabbos, as we'll see. Okay, so let's begin. It's 23b, Chav Gimel and Beis, and it's 6 lines at the top of the page. After the colon, 2 dots. So we have a few halachas, a message from the Gemara that we're going to conclude with, and then we're going to conclude with the lines from the Rambam. Hope to be able to squeeze all that in today. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Redifa. Rav Yitzchak, son of Redifa, said, Amar Rav Huna, in the name of Rav Huna, Ner sheyesh lashtei piyos, a candle that has 2 mouths. This is old time. You have a plate with oil, and then the plate would have a cover, as Rashi describes it, and then there would be a hole in the top of the cover also. The hole on the top of the cover was the hole through which you put the oil in, and I guess would let oxygen in and out. And then you have 2 holes on the side to put the wicks into. Following? Okay. So if you have 2 of them, then oil beis b'nei adam, that could work for 2 different people. 2 people living in the same home, and they're not doing the highest level of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Rather, they're doing each member of the household is lighting one candle to fulfill the obligation of lighting a candle on Chanukah. So they're using 1 bowl of oil, 2 wicks with a cover. Says Rav Yitzchak bar Redifa in the name of Rav Huna, that is okay. It's kosher. It works for both of them. They can each fulfill their obligation of lighting the menorah on such a candle, even though it's the same bowl and they're sharing the same oil. Amar Rava says even further. Mila kaira shemen, if you fill the plate filled with oil, you keep up silos, and you ring the whole thing with wicks all around the plate. So you have 10, 15, whatever. Kafal and kli, and you put another plate or something to cover it. Oil lakabane adam, and each candle works for another person. So you have multiple people in the home, all using 1 plate of oil, so long as the top is covered. But loy kafal lekli, if you do not cover it with a plate on top, so all you have is an open bowl of oil with a bunch of wicks hanging out of it, then asa kamin madura, it's as if it's a torch. And therefore, even for 1 individual couldn't use this as a menorah. Never mind the multiple people, because it's no longer a candle, it's no longer a singular flame, it's now a torch. As Rashi explains, and we all have seen this, flames tend to merge with each other. So if there isn't a plate to separate them, eventually all the flames will be pointing to the center in this one great torch, and therefore not valid as a menorah. So it's a good question. It seemed like the first description sounded like the way Rashi described it. The Gemara described it. It sounded like it was built to have 2 wicks. The second one seems like it's just an ordinary home plate, and you covered it with another home plate. But I'm assuming the wicks are popping out on the sides in between the 2 plates. Not that it's built with holes. Yeah, so the very fact that the plate is on top keeps them distinct already, right? Keeps them distinct. Yeah.
But don't you fulfill the obligation with one candle? So why does it not count as 1 candle? Why does
it doesn't count as 1 candle because it becomes a torch. The mitzvah is to light a candle, not a torch. Because it's not covered, all the flames merging make it into a torch. Right? The issue is not the fact that it's singular versus plural. The issue is that it's no longer a candle. Yeah, sorry?
It's like bigger.
Yeah, it's what the Gemara calls a torch. Not like a madura. It's like a torch, or like madura is actually a bonfire, not even a torch. Okay, further stated. This is the halacha, this is the law that I wanted to look at in the Rambam when we're done. The law we're about to read, but we're going to read another passage before we get back to that law. Omar Rava says, Pshita li, it's obvious to me, it's clear to me, says Rava, that if a person had so little money that they only had enough to buy one candle, and they had to choose now, it's Friday night and it's Hanukkah. So Ner Beisai, either they lit the candle for their home, which is the Shabbos candle, as we explained already in the past. Shabbos candle is made for you to enjoy. The institution of the Shabbos candle is that you can have light in your home so you don't bump into people, trip over things, and you have an enjoyable Shabbos. So that's what the Gemara calls a Ner Beisai, the candle of your home, just to give you light in the house. The Ner Chanukah, and it's a question of lighting a Hanukkah menorah, lighting a candle. So he has enough money for one candle. So which one should he use it for? Should he light the menorah with it? And if he lights the menorah, he's not allowed to take pleasure from this candle. Or should he light his private personal candle, i.e. the Shabbos candle, and enjoy it? Says Rava, this is clear to me, obvious, pshitali, that Ner Beisai Oidef, he better spend that last dollar on a candle for his Shabbos candles. Why? Mishum Shalom Beisai, because it brings peace to the home. I'm not going to bump into people. I'm not going to trip. I'm not going to be able to enjoy my Shabbos. It brings peace to the home when there's candles lit, and therefore that takes precedent over the Hanukkah candles. Peace in the home. We're going to elaborate on this on the Rambam when we get there. On these words, that Shabbos candles has virtue over Hanukkah because it brings peace. Okay. That's right, but that's not what he says. We'll see. One second. Let's see in a second. It's a good point. Let's see, because that's a good one. As I said, it's going to come up. Let's wait and see. Ner Beisai, if a person has a choice now to buy candles for Shabbos candles, again for him to enjoy, for the peace in the home, and Kiddush Hayom, or to buy a wine for Kiddush, so those are his options. He has $1 left. Should he buy a cup of wine for Kiddush, or a candle for Shabbos candles? Continues Rava, again, Ner Beisai Odef, better light the Shabbos candles, spend that dollar on the Shabbos candles, rather than spending it on Kiddush. Mishum Shalom Beisai, because again, it brings peace to the home. Maybe he has all his possessions and he's now left with his last dollar. I don't know. So yeah, okay, good point. Sorry, good point. And it's discussed. It's a good point. Okay, we're talking about the principle of it though. Okay, Boy Rava now. So this is which is obvious to Rava. These two laws were obvious. That if it's a question of the peace in his home or some other mitzvah, Hanukkah candles or Kiddush, also discussed rabbinic mitzvahs, biblical mitzvahs, but let's just say it's other mitzvahs. So Rava says, it's clear to me, Shabbos candles take precedence because of the peace element, the element of peace that it brings to the home. But boy, Rava, here's where conundrum does come to Rava. This is where Rava is uncertain. Ner Chanukah, a person has a choice now. I have $1 left. Should I buy a candle for my Chanukah candles, the Kiddush Hayom, or buy a cup of wine for Kiddush? Mahu, what's the law? And here's weighing two options. On the one hand, Kiddush Hayom, Adif. On the one hand, I could say that making Kiddush is a primary importance because it's more common. As Jacob correctly noted, there's a principle in Halacha, which is Tadir v'she'ena Tadir kodim. If you are faced with two mitzvahs, or two things, one thing is more common, one thing is less common, do the thing that's more common first. Small example. You're supposed to put on your talis before you put on your tefillin. And therefore, your talis bag should be set up as such that your talis bag is what your hand touches before it touches the tefillin. What's the reason? Because talis is more common than tefillin. For the simple reason that you don't put on tefillin on Shabbos and Yom Tov. And you do wear talis. So talis is more common than tefillin. And therefore, you should put your talis on before your tefillin. And therefore, your tefillin bag should be set up as such that when your hand enters the bag, the first thing it touches is your talis before it touches the tefillin. And that way, you don't pass over the mitzvah to get the other mitzvah. Okay, so the same principle should apply here then. I have a choice, Hanukkah candles or Kiddush. Kiddush is more common, obviously. It's every single week. Hanukkah is once a year. And therefore, that principle would dictate, spend the money on the Kiddush. Or perhaps, there's another virtue here to take into consideration. Ner Chanukah Adif. Ner Chanukah has a virtue in that, because it has the element of publicizing the miracle. Whereas Shabbos is a personal experience. So which one takes precedent? The fact that it's more common, which would therefore mean I should buy Kiddush, or the fact that there's a public element to it, I share the mitzvah with the world, Hanukkah candles, and therefore I should spend the money on the Hanukkah candle rather than the wine. So says the Gemara, Basa de Baya, after having posed this inquiry, Hadar Pashta, he then himself answered the question. He didn't wait for somebody else to answer the question for him. he settled the argument himself, and he said, Ner Chanukah Adif, better buy your Chanukah candles Mishum Persum Minisa because of the publicizing the miracle. In other words, your common routine does not hold a candle. Doesn't hold a candle. Right? You got it? In the face of a mitzvah that I can share with the world. A mitzvah that I share with the world takes precedent over my private routine. So even though the private routine is a religious routine, it's a routine of my connection to Hashem, I better share with the world. There's a lot to be learned in that line there. Yeah, my routine, this is what I learn every day. This is when I daven. This is when I do my thing. Now I have to disrupt my routine because I have to share and help somebody else. But I'm feeling it's going to make my davening worse. Right? This is bar mitzvah and MTC, not either BC before Corona or AC after Corona. And you have to go around helping people put on tefillin. But it's disrupting my whole davening thing. By the time I sit down to daven, I'm going to have to rush it through a little bit more, and I'm going to have to take off my tefillin, and I'm going to have to run it. Sharing the mitzvah with somebody else takes precedent over your spiritual routine. It's an element of the mitzvah of Chanukah. It's an element of the mitzvah of Chanukah. It's not just a side element. It's actually a main feature. Because if you don't have it, it's a question of if you don't have it, it's a question of if you can even light it. For example, if you lighting menorah too late, we talked about this before. If it's when the market is closed already, when the public is empty, the street is empty, you can only make the bracha on the candle if somebody else is up in your home, and that way you're publicizing it to them. So it's not just a side feature, it's actually an element of the very mitzvah. But I'm kind of broadening it to take it as a lesson in Yiddishkeit in general, that don't get so bent out of shape because your routine is being changed because you have to help another Jew. It takes more importance.
But it is fascinating because you're not sanctifying the table at all. No kiddush and anything. I'm just saying, I don't know.
I don't know, but presumably the person has some sort of food. I don't think he's starving. Yeah, that's a question just to put, but
I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, it's interesting. See if it actually comments. Doesn't seem like a comment. Sorry?
In that instance, if he's buying spending the dollar on the candle.
Yeah.
So what does he do in that case for kiddush?
That's what it seems like he's foregoing kiddush. However you break down the scenario, whether he has bread or doesn't have bread, he's foregoing kiddush completely, or he's foregoing an elevated version of kiddush. If he's not buying wine, he's making kiddush on bread instead, let's say. Or maybe he only has meat and fish in the house. He's not making kiddush at all, right? The commentaries and halacha deals with all this, but the principle is still the same.
This same discussion of Tadir also applies
To Megillah. Right.
You're saying more of a basic question here. Should have asked the next question.
Havdalah.
It's by the way, it's the same problem.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry? Shul versus home in terms of what? Kiddush? Yeah, well, back in the old day, they had Kiddush in Shul also. Actually, many communities still do. Many communities still do. No, I mean Friday night. Even Friday night.
Oh, even Friday night.
The Alter has a simon like that in Shulchan Aruch. The question is why Lubavitch doesn't do it is a good question. But there's a simon like that. Because there's machlekes Taisus that actually discusses if it's because of visitors or because of people who live there. Different opinions there. Yeah. But anyway, the fact that Lubavitch doesn't do it is a good question. But either way, saying the issue of Kiddush and Kiddush, yeah, sure. Sorry? Even though, halachically speaking, it's a big question as to why we do it, b'chlal, but nonetheless, the Alter does have a simon dedicated to explaining it, and why Lubavitch doesn't do it is for another time. That's the big question. So to go back to in the old days, there were people who ate in shul, either the gabbai, the people who lived in the shul, or visitors who come to town. They were eating in the shul, and kiddush was for them. And we still do it because they used to do it, or we, as in the communities that do it because they still used to do it. So the fact that they still do it is itself halachically questionable, but nonetheless, it's been established halacha that we do it, making a question of why Lubavitch does not do it, right? Even though from halach perspective, maybe you shouldn't do it because there's no more people living here. Why are you doing it? Anyway, there's the back and forth, as you can see. Okay, let's go further in the Gemara. And I think we're going to conclude with these lines, because at this point, the Gemara gets back to the laws of Shabbos and Yom Tov. So even though the Gemara goes back again to Chanukah, but I think we're going to conclude at the end of this. Amar Rav Huna says, Harogel bener, one who is accustomed to being scrupulous with the mitzvah of lighting candles. It's the way Rashi puts it. It's both the Shabbos candles and the Chanukah candles. He makes sure that his mitzvah candles are well done and well performed, etc., and so on. So it says Rav Huna, as a reward, God grants him children, sons that are scholars, that are God-fearing scholars. Hazahir b'mezuzah, one who is scrupulous to the mitzvah of mezuzah, not just that he has a mezuzah, but Zahir, he's scrupulous. He makes sure his mezuzah is positioned properly. He makes sure they're checked every, by basic Jewish law, checked twice every 7 years, by Chabad custom once every year in Elul. And he makes sure that they're quality mezuzahs and so on. Then as a reward, God grants him a beautiful home. Hazari b'tzitzis, one who is scrupulous with the mitzvah of tzitzis. Again, scrupulous means tzitzis are of kosher mahadrin, to mahadrin kosher, and with all the different nuanced details that make a Chabad tzitzis the way they are, with the loops and all the stuff, the spacings, all the different details of tzitzis that are sometimes hard to uphold. A person can do them. Then God grants him the reward that he has good, nice clothing. Talis literally means a shawl. We think of talis as in like a talis with tzitzis that we daven with, but the word talis just means a shawl. The mitzvah is the tzitzis, not the talis. The word talis just over here means a broad term that he's going to have nice clothing. Hazari b'kiddush, one who is scrupulous of the mitzvah of kiddush to make sure it's done right, in the right time, with the right, with a beautiful cup, with the right wine, and so on. Zoicha, he is rewarded and merits, and Mamale Garve Yayin, gets to fulfill barrels of wine. I have no doubt that we can go deeper into the spiritual significance of all of this, but even its plain meaning is powerful enough. Says the Gemara, 2 incidents that are in line with the previous statement. Rav Huna Havarogel, Rav Huna was accustomed to have a cholov etani apischa debei Rabbi Abin. Rav Huna was accustomed, he would routinely teach Torah literally at the household or at the gate of Rabbi Abin. Presumably he would teach Rabbi Abin, I don't know if maybe he would teach Rabbi Abin's children, or maybe he just had a class there, I don't know. But he would routinely teach at the gate of Rabbi Abin. And Rabbi Abin Nagra, Rabbi Abin, the Nagra means a carpenter, that's right, built with wood. So Chaza, Rav Huna noticed, that Rabbi Abin would light lots of candles every Shabbos. Right, again, we have electricity, so we don't have to worry about lighting lots of candles. We just light the minimum candles to fulfill the mitzvah. But as we explained, the mitzvah essentially is to brighten your home so that you have peace in the home and you enjoy your meal and you don't bump into each other, you don't trip over things. So a person could light as many candles as they wanted to, and it would all be part of the same mitzvah. And that's what this Rabbi Abin would do. He would brighten up his whole home for Shabbos. And Omar, so Rabbi Abin said, considering what he's doing, lighting Shabbos candles so excessively every Friday, today Gavre Avravi, 2 great men, Nafki Mahacha, will emerge from this home. And indeed, Nafki Minayu, he emerged from this home. He gave birth to, he had 2 children, Rabbi Idi bar Avin and Rabbi Chia bar Avin. His name was Rabbi Abin. So his son Idi, son of Avin, and Rabbi Chia, son of Avin, are famous, well-quoted sages of the Gemara, and they were born to this Rabbi Abin in merit the fact that he lit up his home for Shabbos. Baal Shem Tov was very into making sure things were bright, lots of light. Baal Shem Tov talked a lot about this, having a bright shul. Kivdu as Hashem, with light ones, one honors Hashem. It's at least perhaps one of the reasons for why there's a Ner Talmud, because the idea of having a bright, there's a number of reasons why we might have a Ner Talmud. I think we once given a class on this a long time ago. And but one of them is for this idea. Sorry, maybe we should review that by God willing. And one of the suggested sources is this verse. Kibbudim Hashem, light is the word. It's a pasuk, I think, in Yeshaya. I think it's there. I think. If I'm wrong, but the pasuk definitely says Kibbudim Hashem, with light one honors Hashem. So it's Shabbos, there's got to be light in the home. The shul has to be brightly lit. And that's one of the reasons, at least for Ner Talmud, that even when no one's here, there's still light in the shul. Okay, so this Rabbi Abin had two children that were Talmidei Chacham, scholars of the Gemara, because in merit of his keeping the mitzvah of Shabbos candles scrupulously and excessively. Rav Chizda, similar story. Rav Chizda the Rav Shizvi. Rav Chizda was accustomed that he would teach Torah at the household of either the father-in-law of Rav Shizvi or the father of Rav Shizvi. Shizvi, either way. Chaza, again, he noticed he too would light many candles every Shabbos for his home. Omar and Rav Chizda therefore said, Gavra Rabbi Nafik Mahacha, a great man is going to emerge from this household. And we noted, Nafik Minei Rav Shizvi was born to this household, either married into the household or born to this household, depending on whether Bar Nosha means the father of Rav Shizvi or the father-in-law. Of course, the big question is why the first person got two and this one got one. I don't know. Sorry?
Ours is not the question.
I mean, ours is not the question.
Ours is the expression.
The description of what they did is exactly the same, right? Davarogel b'shragi tuva. They both say davarogel b'shragi tuva. So I just am curious, wondering why this one won and that one two. Who? And answer?
The first one was husband and wife.
Well,
That's why only one.
Habav ish lakacha b'trei gavi Rabbi Rabbi. Dafik b'nei hacha. Kamana machaz davarogel regila ha'isha. There's the distinction. The first time it says they were scrupulous, husband and wife. And the second version says she was scrupulous, only the mother, therefore only one. Even though in our version of the Gemara it's exactly the same, rogel and rogel. I guess in Taisa's version of the Gemara the words were a little different. Very interesting. Thank you.
The Havel, yeah. Plural.
He points out the regili and regila, or the hava.
Havel, yeah.
Oh, okay.
His must have different gears.
He must have a different gear, so yeah. They both say the hava, right?
Yeah, it also says.
That's to say, Taisa had a different version. That's what I said, yeah.
Plural.
Okay, one more story, and then we conclude the Gemara. Even though this is about Shabbos candles, but it's coming on the heels of this idea. The Gemara says the one who is scrupulous about candles in general, Chanukah and Shabbos, gets as merits. So, concluding line: the Beisayu de Rav Yosef, the wife of Rav Yosef, havas ma'achers madleka. She would light candles the last second before Shabbos started. Amal Rav Yosef said, Tanya, we learned, the pasuk says that when the Jews were traveling in the desert, the pillar of smoke never left them, and the pillar of flame also never left them at night. Right, so that the pillar of smoke during the day to lead them, and the pillar of fire at night to lead the Jewish people in the desert. And this pasuk seems superfluous, considering that the pasuk earlier had already described it. And as Rashi pointed out for us, says, and therefore says Rabbi Yosef to his wife, Malamed, the reason why the pasuk repeats itself is to teach you that the pillar of smoke at night would overlap with the flame at the daytime. Amud Aish, and the pillar of fire at night, Mashlam Amud Anan, would overlap with the pillar of smoke in the day. So there was never a second when there was no guidance. So they would overlap. In other words, he's telling her that the Shabbos should overlap into the weekday. So light your Shabbos candles a little bit earlier. This is his way of communicating to his wife in a nice way. Instead of, why don't you light the Shabbos candles earlier? Gives her a nice teaching, nice little explanation, kind of, hinting to her that she should light Shabbos candles earlier. So Savra, so she figured, lakduma, okay, so I'll light the candles much earlier, way earlier in the afternoon. Amrlahu Saba, so there was some elder who told her, Tanina, it's been taught, light Shabbos candles not too early and not too late. Because if you light it too early, then it looks like you're just lighting it because you want to have light in your home. It doesn't appear that you're lighting it in honor of Shabbos. Anyways, it has to be lit after Plaga Mincha Halach. Okay, so this concludes our Gemara on Shabbos. We're we're still, what's the word? We're still undecided as to what we're going to be continuing tomorrow. Either Saita, maybe we can put it out to the floor. Saita is a tractate that deals with the laws of the husband who's jealous of his wife, and therefore there's a whole procedure she has to go through. But it includes in it lots of agadata, which means a lot of midrashic kind of stuff with messages and lessons and stories, analyzation of historical verses in scripture and so on. That's one option. The other option is the book of the tractate Moed Katan, which is less midrashic and much more halachic focused. Halachas of Chol HaMoed, intermediary days between the first day of Sukkot, last day of Sukkot, first day of Pesach, and last day of Pesach, and it also has the laws of mourning. So halacha based or more midrashic. That's the choice. No comments.
You're gonna have to decide.
I'm gonna have to decide.
I think so.
No vote. Okay, so I'm pulling up now my screen here. The halacha I was referring to earlier. I want to read these halachas for you. So I mentioned today that today is the. Sorry.
He said he thinks a vote is appropriate. I said I think a coin with 3 sides is appropriate.
A coin with 3 sides. Yeah. So I mentioned that today is the 25th Tavis of the Rambam's yard site, the passing of the Rambam, and I mentioned that we conclude our class today with a quote from the Rambam related to our Gemara. So this is the end of it. I have it on my screen here. I didn't print it, but I'll read it in English so you'll understand. We mentioned in previous class that the Rambam's laws of Chanukah are combined with Megillah.
Where is it in there? Get on this fire.
Oh, Sefaria. So you go to Halacha, Mishnah Torah, laws of the scroll of Esther and Hanukkah, and the end, the last halachas. Sorry. Yeah, it's easy. A few clicks. Yeah, the book of Zmanim, and then it's the end of the book of Zmanim. The end of the book of, actually, point that out also. It's the end of the book of Zmanim, right? So there's 14 books of the laws of the Rambam. One of them is the book of Zmanim, which means times. So in it includes all the laws pertaining to the calendar, including Shabbos, Yom Tovim, and so on. So the last thing is Chanukah and Purim being the rabbinic holidays, and the last of those two is Chanukah. There's 4 laws to the laws of Chanukah and Purim. First 2 Purim, second 2 Chanukah. So these are the last 2 laws culminating the book of Zmanim. The first one, the second to last law, third to last law, I'm sorry. As is often the case, Rambam concludes concludes set of laws describing the beauty of the mitzvah. Oftentimes, the Rambam is very, generally speaking, strictly halachic. So the book of, not always, but in the book of laws, he's strictly halachic, and therefore a lot of the Rambam's poetry, art, feelings, emotions are curtailed in face of dry law. But it does come forth at the end of the laws a lot of times that I'm going to throw in a line or a lesson that you can learn from the laws. They're sometimes unrelated completely to the laws themselves, but they're kind of a lesson that it teaches you. So it has that. So at the end of this law, he says, the precept, the mitzvah of lighting Hanukkah lamp is exceedingly precious, and one should carefully observe it in order to acclaim the miracle, ever praising and thanking God for the miracles which he has performed for us. Even if one has nothing to eat, except that he gets from charity, he should borrow or sell his garment to buy oil and lamps and light them. So this is a law that doesn't just include the beauty of Hanukkah. Hanukkah is so great, but also has actual practical application. It's so great that you should even sell your clothing to buy oil to light the Hanukkah candles.
Sure, because when you light the candle, you'll be warm.
You're not allowed to enjoy the Hanukkah candles. You can't do that.
It's a problem.
So it continues.
It's right.
So if one only had one coin, and the kiddush of Shabbos and lighting lamp are before him, so he has to choose candle or kiddush. That's what we learned today. He should have. This is it's not very good translation. I'm going to translate myself in the Hebrew. He should then al yayin the kiddush hayom. He should buy wine for kiddush. See, he says there wine. No, sorry. He should buy first candles before he buys wine for kiddush. The point is he learns that that's a question of wine versus candle, not bread. So presumably the person already has bread, in Rambam's view at least. So he has a choice, Hanukkah candles or wine for Kiddush, buy the Hanukkah candles. Because both of them are rabbinic, better do the Hanukkah candles because it has a memorial to the miracle. Zichron Hanes.
So he's Kiddush Hayom for the day, exactly. Question would be.
Oh, does that mean Friday night? The Luchor means Friday night anyway. Even Friday night, the wine is Rabbanon. Even if the bracha is Daraisa, the wine is the Rabbanon. Right? But here's the big question, Rambam.
He says Hayom, you can make a bill, but he doesn't teach it.
No, Kiddush Hayom means Kiddush Hayom usually means huh? You make the bracha by Friday night by davening, by Yechulu. At the end of the service Friday night, you make the bracha then by Yechulu and you say Magen Avos. That's all. That's Kiddush, right? Or the Menorahs itself. But one second. But he said something here that should ring a bell. He said, "Why are we choosing Hanukkah candle?" What did the Gemara say? Why are we choosing Hanukkah candle over Kiddush? Publicizing the miracle. What did he say here? Zichron Hanes. It commemorates the miracle. Commemorate the miracle, not publish the miracle. Good question. But here's the main halacha I wanted to point, and here's how it concludes the laws of Hanukkah. And there's a question that many ask, and the Rabbi discusses this a number of times, is why is this law we're about to read here at the end of Hanukkah? Seemingly this law should be in the laws of Shabbos candles. Because this law actually puts down the Hanukkah candle, seemingly. Because it tells you should choose Shabbos candles over Hanukkah candles. As he says, if one had the choice, buy candles for Shabbos or buy candles for Hanukkah, or he has a choice, buy candles for Shabbos or buy wine for Kiddush, then he should buy Shabbos candles, takes precedence. Why? Because of the element of bringing peace into the home. The law ends here, really. But as I mentioned, the Rambam always often concludes the book of any set of laws with a kind of nice message. So now he throws in a message. Because, how do we see that the peace in the home is so great? Because the name of God is erased in order to make peace between husband and wife. And this is a reference to one of the tractates I put up for your choice, the law of Saita, which is, so you know what? So maybe this is an indication we should do Saita then. Okay, we'll take it as a sign. Saita it is. Done. Does that count as a coin toss?
If you're going to be doing the jealousy between
Yeah.
that's you're right on track.
Good. So we're going to do that.
Okay, landed on that.
Okay, so that's
That's where it landed.
all right. Good. So the law is right, as we're going to learn, God willing, that when there's jealousy between husband and wife, and he's suspicious, and they're not sure of whether or not she was faithful or not, so they go to the Beis Hamikdash and they take a scroll that has certain passages in the Torah written, including Hashem's name. They put it into water, they mix it to the point that all the ink comes off the paper, and then she drinks it. And this drink, as we'll learn, will demonstrate either her innocence or her guilt. So here Hashem says, erase my name so that husband and wife can learn to trust each other again, to restore peace in the home. Because if she leaves and she's healthy, and in fact she gets blessings, then he knows she was always faithful, and now they're happy together. This is one of the blessings that the Gemara promises, is that there will be peace in the home. So this is how great peace is, that Hashem is willing to erase his name for peace. So certainly, if lighting the candles of Shabbos candles is going to bring peace in your home, certainly choose that over Hanukkah. The Gemara didn't say any of this. Rambam is putting this in here. Furthermore, he says, again, not part of the halachas of Hanukkah themselves, but he put this in there. Gadol HaShalom, great is peace. Shekol HaTorah nitn las HaShalom ba'olam. All of Torah was given to us for no other reason than to make peace in the world, to bring harmony and peace amongst people. Shenemar, as the verse reads, between people, between God and people, between heaven and earth, and so on. Shenemar, as the verse reads, the pathways of Torah are peaceful, are pleasant, and all of its pathways, all of its journeys are shalom, are peace. So it's a beautiful description of peace. But what's interesting is, this is how we conclude the laws of Hanukkah. When seemingly the message of Hanukkah is not the peace. It's the message of the Shabbos candles to supersede the Hanukkah. So maybe you should have put this in the laws of Shabbos candles. So one of the explanations is that the mitzvah of Hanukkah itself, the biggest beauty of mitzvah Hanukkah itself is if it can give itself away for peace. It's not as if like you have two virtues. You have Hanukkah, which says, please like me. And you have Shabbos candles, which say, please make peace. And Hanukkah is protesting, oh, Nebuch, I've been overridden by this thing called peace. No. Hanukkah itself, the light of Hanukkah itself is fulfilled in its utmost if you were to forgo it for the sake of peace. right? Like the name of Hashem is not desecrated because you rubbed it out into the piece, but that's the ultimate usage of Hashem's name, as it were, is that it's used to make peace between husband and wife. So this is a little vart from the Rambam in honor of his Eretzeit, and this kind of, I guess, we'll conclude our discussion on the laws of Hanukkah from the Gemara. I certainly enjoyed learning the laws of Hanukkah. Hope you all enjoyed learning it with us. And God willing, tomorrow we begin Masechta Saita. So the last few tractates has been sections of the Gemara. We haven't done a whole tractate in a while. We did Menorahs, a certain part of Menorahs. And then we did Yuma, the last chapter. Now we only did one section related to Hanukkah. God willing, the tractate Saita will go from beginning all the way to the end. So we're in it for the long haul. It's 49 dafim, 49 pages. So I imagine 49 pages will give us maybe 100, 150, maybe 150 classes or so. If on average we're doing a quarter a page, 150, 200 classes. So we're talking about close to a year will be dedicated to the tractate Saita. So it's going to be a good journey, and looking forward to going on it with all of you. Have a wonderful day.